saying men should be dangerous. By dangerous, that implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody.
No, you should be capable of it. There's nothing to you otherwise.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous.
Welcome to The Dangerous Man. I'm your host, Adam Thooft, joined by co-host
John Kostohris.
Was good.
Good morning, everybody. And I mean, by good morning, good 10 p.m., everybody.
Yeah.
Wait, so not the morning? No.
But,
well, you'll be hearing this in the morning, probably.
You could be, someone could be working out and hearing this in the morning. But to those guys, good morning. Because
you know what time we release episodes, right?
Yeah, it's 4
3
a.m. Oh, 3 a.m.? Is it 3 a.m.?
Well, it should be 4 a.m., but I keep thinking of our 3 a.m. jokes. So
3 a.m. challenge.
Maybe we should make it 3 a.m.
So then if someone gets up at 3 a.m. on a Monday, they'll be like, yes, The Dangerous Man just dropped a new episode.
Yeah, exactly,
but,
man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, what's been good?
Dude, I feel more free today than I have my whole life.
Really? Wow.
I know that's a super deep thing to say, but
Damn.
Bro, I'm just fueled on what we're doing on this podcast. And I had opportunity last week to have a conversation with a guest. His name's Ben Ashleman. He was actually, if you remember Ben,
yes,
he was a guest on the, I think in the 20s, episode 25 or something like that, 29. Yes. Adam's looking now. We had him as a guest on the show, and he's out in Montana, and he's a Minnesota boy, though. Shout out.
Minnesota boy.
And Ben, if you're listening to this, we love you. You're awesome. And I was getting so fired up talking to him about really what we're after here and this tribe of dangerous men that we're building. And really, oh my gosh, I feel like we just keep so much of our heart with this under wraps. But like, I've just been really talking to Peter Jingdahl, talking to Danny Jingdahl, Adam.
Yeah, if you want to hear our conversation
Abbott
with Ben Ashleman, that will be episode 27 in the audio feed.
It's a really good one. Go check it out, guys. We interview him on some of his story. But yeah, I mean, just like there are so many men out there that, Adam, that are suffering and are hurting, and the reason is because they aren't living the life that they know they were born to do. They literally have dreams that they know they were born to be in, and they can't possibly see a way to get there. And this immense pain comes to our life because we know we were created to do great things. And why I've been getting so freaking fired up is because I'm starting to do great things, and I'm starting to find my way. And that's what we do on this podcast, is we're documenting this. Yeah. And the amount of conversations I've already been able to have with random guys on the street even. And I just know that those who are listening to this podcast right now, whether it's when we released it or whether it's 10, 20 years from when I released it, that there is a purpose for your life. There is a mission placed on your life, that you were born to do something great with your life. And being able to be a part of this tribe of dangerous men here at Dangerous Men's Global and the Dangerous Man podcast, that you're able to find guys and men and brothers around you that are deciding to leave average behind and do something great with their lives. Anyways, this has just been rocking me, and I'm just so excited to be here and be able to.
You're so excited you've drank a massive amount of coffee today.
Yeah, my 3 cups of coffee today. And,
there's someone out there who's like, that's rookie numbers. I drank 8 or 15.
Drop us a comment in the description here if you drink 8 cups of coffee. I'm gonna come meet you. I'm gonna fly to you and meet you because I want to know how you do it. But
or at least have a Zoom call.
Yeah. So what's your secret? I just really like coffee. So
yeah.
Oh man, but
Now, speaking of other crazy stuff, I completed 75 hard.
Let's go.
Baby. So
This is awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew this obviously because we're friends.
Yeah.
But come on, tell us about this.
Absolutely crazy. Like it got very hard towards the end. But I also like finished it out, and it's like like it feels amazing. But anyway, like the day that I finished 75 hard, I was actually on a retreat in Franklin, Tennessee, which is like the bougie part of Nashville. If you've ever been there, it's like they got some mansions down there. We were at a hotel, which wasn't like a super bougie hotel, but it was a nice hotel.
But the area is nice.
But the area is like super bougie. Like I'll look at some of those houses and be like, that's a pretty nice house. I'll have something like that.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
even their fire station is like bougie. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, I was in the gym at the hotel, which is actually a pretty nice gym for a hotel gym, which I've from the ones that I've experienced. Yeah, like I've experienced like really crappy ones that are like, we wanted to say we had a fitness center, so we changed this room that was a room that people stayed in and remodeled it into a gym, and it has one treadmill and some weights and a bench, and that's basically it.
Right. Oh my gosh, that couldn't be more accurate.
Yeah, like
I'd have nothing to add to that.
Like there's some hotel fitness centers that are like, this clearly was an afterthought, and then there's some hotel fitness centers where it's like when they built the building, they thought about this.
It's kind of like when you build a house and you're like, we want to increase the value, so let's put egress windows in the basement. But then you walk down and you're like, yeah, this is definitely a room.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel like the fitness center is.
Yeah.
Well, we can get some points if we have a fitness center. So
yeah.
I think one fat person will walk on this if we put a treadmill.
We could put it on our website. But anyway, this hotel was not that case. They did definitely think about, like, they even had like a filtered like water thing that you could also get like sparkling water from that was in the gym. So it was like pretty nice.
Franklin, Tennessee. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see you.
This is at their Marriott. So Marriott, you owe me money. Anyway, I was doing my workout on day 75 in the gym.
Right. 75 hard.
On 75 hard. This is day 75. And Peter Jingdahl, who's been on the Dangerous Man on the show, he was also going to this retreat at the hotel there. And he was talking to some other guys in the gym, and there's these other guys that actually started 75 hard and were like a little bit into it, like day 5 or day 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, so that guy's on day 75. And like, I'm just like kind of cranking out my workout. So I'm not really paying attention because I'm like, oh, Peter's talking to some dudes. This is cool. Like, I know, like, when we go to these type of things, we always talk to a bunch of people.
Right.
But like, one of the guys was like, yeah, 75 hard, and gave me like a fist bump. It's like, finish strong, man. And like, it was like a good time. And like, we kind of like, we like drove down there overnight from like Minnesota to Tennessee. It's super long, but we had like the first session was like in the evening, so we had a decent amount of time. So like, I wasn't like stretched to fit everything in. I kind of had some time just to kind of crank out a lot of this stuff.
That's nice.
Which was like really nice. Granted, like on day 74, I had to like finish my reading like in the car as we were like driving towards the end of the day. But I mean, I've done more difficult things than that during 75 hard, including like drinking an entire gallon of water at like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. while we're on the road or something like that.
Oh my.
So
gotta do whatever it takes, man.
Yeah, that's literally what 75 hard is about. But like when I finished it, I was like, wow, I don't actually have to be like, oh, there's all these things that I have to get done today. And like some of them I did, like day 76. Yeah. I still got both workouts in. Like one of them was outside and the other one was inside. Granted, like the outside one was not because like us and like some of the other people there were going on a hike at a park anyway. So it's like, oh, well, I guess this is it. Like I wasn't necessarily planning this, but this is gonna be how it's happened. But the other workout that I got in, I definitely like quote unquote could have skipped, but I was like hitting it at like pretty close to midnight. Yeah. So
75 hard things.
Yeah, because it's like you almost want to like kind of keep it going after, but also it's good to sometimes have a break so you can kind of like remember what it's not when you're not doing all of those things. Because like all the things that you do for 75 hard are like is like a win. So they're like all wins. So like every day you're like winning. But like, so like after that, I thought like, I didn't know what I was going to feel after I like completed 75 hard. I thought I was like, it's going to be freaking hype and I'm going to be like, yes, I completed it.
That was kind of your expectation?
Yeah, that was my expectation. But like when I completed it, there was actually more like relief than anything else. It's like, I did it. It's finally over. Like, yeah, pretty much. Like I did it. Like, and I think I understand a little bit more now what they say about like Olympic athletes when they get a gold medal. Yeah. And they like feel more relieved that they didn't lose than that like the excitement of winning.
I have heard that.
Because they put in so much work to get there.
Yeah.
That are like, it wasn't all for nothing.
Right. Like finally.
It's like finally I don't have to worry about failing this thing.
It's done. Wow.
Yeah. No, I did like day 76. I didn't do everything, so I got a little bit lax, but I knew I was like kind of the plan was to.
Are you expecting to keep doing these practices after you finish 75 hard?
Yeah, definitely doing most of them, but like for the few days I was expecting to like kind of take it a little bit easier as kind of like to celebrate a little bit.
Okay.
Before I get like back into it, because I'm planning on also doing kind of an intense bulk coming up here, which is going to be more intense. So it's like, well, I'm going to start that pretty soon. So like I can have a couple of days in between and like, that's kind of okay. And that was kind of like the mentality that I was going into it with. Cause then it's also like good to like, maybe like don't go directly into like phase 1 of Lived Hard, which is like the next part of 75 hard. After which you can go into, but like I decided not to because I was like going to try to do this bulk, and the bulk doesn't necessarily exactly fit like diet wise because it's a little bit more of like a controlled dirty bulk. So like you're when you're doing like 75 hard or phase 1 of Lived Hard, it's supposed to be cleaner. So it didn't really quite fit with that. So it's like, okay, I'm going to space this out a little bit. But anyway, I kind of like, all right, I know this space is programmed in, so like it's okay to like relax and chill a little bit. And last night I like kind of stayed up kind of late, like watching TV. And this morning I woke up and it was like, just had like so much anxiety. Like I was like, just getting out. Like I woke up, and like hit snooze, and then I eventually like turned the snooze into like a longer timer, and so I got up like very late, and by morning I actually mean afternoon.
Oh my!
Like
by morning you mean when you woke up?
When I woke up today,
10 p.m. right now.
No, not quite that late. But I think it was actually like 3 p.m. So it was pretty late. I did feel like well rested. I'll give you that, but I had like a lot of anxiety that like came on, and I'm like just in my like relatively smaller room that's like my bed in the corner. So like I wake up and I kind of hop out into the room, and I'm like,
this is today.
Yeah, this is today, and you know I'm trying to be like, okay, like why do I feel like I have like a bunch of this anxiety? Because it's like, oh, it's like there's that thing of like, oh, it's already 3 p.m. So like I don't have a whole lot of time in the day. And I'm like, well, I'm technically not on 75 hard, so I don't really need to do anything today. So maybe it's okay if I like relax or whatnot. But then there's like this other anxiety of like, oh crap, like I have like, you know, a pile of papers on my dresser in my room, and I'm like, crap, I have to pay some back taxes, and like because I messed up on my tax return, because that's what happens when you have a 1099 in 4 different states, and and that's like the first time I've had to figure that out. So I mean, it's not too bad, but like, so it's like, oh, there's like these things that I need to like figure out, that I was like kind of like not necessarily ignoring, but like almost procrastinating a little bit on while I was doing 75 hard, because I was like if I had time to work on them, I did, but like I was so focused on like, I need to not lose 75 hard. I'm not losing. Like, this is not going to happen. I do not want to have to start again.
Right.
Like I want to be able to go through and not fail. And that's what I did. So I started day set 1 and then didn't have to start again the whole time. So
come on.
That's like, let's go. But
that's great.
Like that, I just had like so much anxiety from like, oh crap, there's these things that I need to handle. Like I should have been working on harder on like getting a new job for like sales. Cause like, and now my like financial situation isn't the greatest. Like I'm doing like okay, but like it's like if I don't figure out something soon, it's gonna get it might get pretty bad. And like like if that happens, like like rent might like be rough. And it like has this anxiety of like, oh crap, like if I can't pay rent, am I gonna have to like move back in with my parents? Like, and my parents are great, but like and then like, you know, like they tell me that they're proud of me and whatnot, but I think there's still kind of that thing of like, they tell me that they're proud of me, but like if I have to move back in with them, like, are they going to be though?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that thing was like, well, they tell me that I'm proud of me, but like, are they actually? And like if I go back to just moving in, like if I have to live with my parents again because I can't, you know, pay rent or something, then it's like, am I just gonna like go back to just living in their basement and like playing video games and like, because that was my life in the past, and like, and that's all I cared about was like video games, and I just like worked because I had to do something to not piss my parents off.
Right.
And it was just like remembering how at that point of my life, I was like, is this it? Like, is this all my life is? Like, and just kind of remembering like the kind of like feeling like a loser in that way. And like, oh, what if I have to go back in that direction? Cause I feel like I've taken so much strides from that. And it's like, if I have to go back in that like, what are people going to like think of me? Like, cause I think a huge portion of like why I did 75 hard is like, I want to, you know, have people like think that like, oh, like I completed 75 hard, like I can do hard things. And like, I want to like be admired for doing hard things. And like, if I have to go back, or people are like, oh, he doesn't walk the walk. He doesn't, you know, he talks the talk, but doesn't walk the walk. Like he's just a hypocrite. And like all this fear of like, ah, shit. Like I like almost feeling like if I have to go back to that, am I just an imposter? Like, like, what if I actually like still am like that guy that was just like living in my parents' basement, and I'm just kind of like pretending to be something that I'm not. Like, you know, like what if I'm just that like all this anxiety that I'm feeling like what if the last like couple of years I've just kind of been pretending to be a winner when I'm really just like a loser, and I haven't actually like really changed. I've just kind of been like, I'm the cool dude. Yeah, look at me. But like,
right.
What if like, am I actually just a loser pretending to be a winner?
Wow. This was all this morning?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, first of all, man, just like, I'm just blown away that you are able and willing to like bring these things up.
Yeah.
And even share that. Like, it's an honor to be able to hear that experience. And like, I want to thank you for being willing to go into that. Because how relatable is that to me and to others listening, right? How often is it easy to get into I would say a spiral of different thought patterns and thought stacking And we talked about in the past, like
Mm-hmm.
personal growth stasis, where we stack these thoughts on each other and they become this wall that's insurmountable.
It's almost like, are those like those dark shadowy hands that we've talked about before, like just have they actually been holding on to me for like the last several years, just wanting to drag me back down into that? And it's like, did I actually do 75 hard for like nothing? And I just have like all of this doubt from that just like came up and through that,
and that's, I'd say that brings up something that I want to be able to talk about on this podcast, which is kind of, well, let me just put it this way. There's this book I was reading, this would have been maybe 5 years ago now, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, that I was reading this book by this author named John Eldredge. And
what a guy.
Adam knows him. He's read this book, and it's him telling these stories from his life. And a lot of it's just like basically masculinity, what it means to be a man. And one of the stories he tells is that he is in this ranch in Colorado, and he's with his brother, and his nephew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so his nephew, they're going to this like the horse pit, I guess, with all the horses or whatever, and they're going to ride horses.
Yeah.
And so John Eldredge is describing this experience where he's seen his nephew go and ride a horse, and he gets bucked off and falls to the ground.
Yeah.
And he walks or runs to kind of the wooden rails on the edge of this horse pit, and he's crying and he's scared. And his uncle, his nephew's father, the uncle, comes up to him, and the little boy is saying, "I can't do it. Oh my gosh! Like I'll never be a good horse rider. I can never do this. Like this is the worst. Like I can't. I'm not able to do this, and I'm a failure." And his uncle catches him. He stops his words and he goes, "No, you are not a failure." He says, "This horse, actually nobody's been able to ride it. It's new and it's rowdy and it has not been trained. And everybody that has tried to ride it has bucked them off."
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the uncle says, "You are just learning to ride a horse. So of course you're not going to get it right away." He says, "You're going to go back and you're going to get on the horse and we're going to do it again." And this time, the tears have stopped. The boy rubs his eyes. He goes, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah." And then he goes and rides the horse. Well, guess what? End of the day, boy's riding that horse that no one could ride. What happened here in this story? And John Eldredge describes it as, well, it's this boy has a life experience, which is, i.e., rides a horse, traumatically gets kicked off. And what does he believe about himself?
Yeah.
About his life? About the horse experience? He believes what? He's a failure.
That he can't ride horses.
He can't ride horses. And he starts believing that he starts like wearing like a sweater these beliefs, these statements, these, I'm a failure, I can never ride horse. And he starts to put that on, as John Eldredge defines this, as an interpretation of a life experience. He starts to interpret reality that he is no good at riding horses and can never be, and that he's as a failure as a man.
Yeah.
And he says this is the role of a dad, of a father, that he steps in and he goes, "Let me interpret your life for you because you don't get it yet. You're still learning. You're still young." He says, he basically was able to point out, like, nobody could ride this horse, so it's not you. And the boy goes, "Oh." And he says, "Well, you're not a failure because you're just learning to ride a horse.
Yeah.
Go and ride the horse again." He's basically saying he's giving him a new interpretation of the situation. Yeah. By the way, that's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all the boy needed to go and keep going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And how often, I'm hearing your story earlier, Adam, and how often, do we have this interpretation of all these bad things in our life, and that is what we can see, and that's what we believe is real.
Yeah. Like, when going into like this stuff, and it's some rough stuff to deal with, like
Yeah.
In like in that time, like when all this stuff is coming up, I'm like what, like I thought I was supposed to be like cured from like this anxiety because I did 75 hard or something.
Yeah.
But like I've had like borderline, like I wouldn't necessarily call it like an anxiety attack, but I'd say like maybe borderline, like because like I don't know exactly what defines a
panic attack.
A panic attack exactly.
I feel like
So
it's pretty ambiguous. But.
it's pretty ambiguous, but it's like, oh, I've like, started hyperventilating and being like, I feel like I can't do anything, and then
Right.
and that was like almost like what happened this morning, because it was just like, what are all these like these fears of like, crap, like if I don't figure this shit out, like is everything just gonna like fall apart? And it's like what have I been doing? Like I should have been focusing more on like these things, and even I even like felt myself starting to like breathe like faster.
Yeah.
But when like, man, when you bring up that story from John Eldridge, like what really like happened with that boy after like his father like told him like those things, like he got back up on the horse, like you said.
Yeah.
Right. But like, because really what the boy was going into was like, oh, I can't do this. Like, this is like, the reality is that I can't ride a horse. Right.
That's like what he was seeing and believing.
Yeah. And
right.
Like, so, but like you were saying, the father, it's like, no, the reality is not that you can't ride a horse. Like, you fell off this one. Yes. But a lot of people fall off this horse. So you can ride horses. It's just, this is kind of like, you're playing riding horses on hard mode. Maybe you should like,
right.
Try it again, because whenever you're playing like anything on hard difficulty, a lot of the time you need to, you fail and you have to start again.
Right. And that's what the boy needed to hear.
Yeah.
He didn't have that perspective.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of
he just thought it was him.
Like a lot of the time, I think we're taught that failure is bad. And like failure is like the worst thing to ever happen. And I think this is a lot through like, the school system. Like, think about like, if you get an F in something, you might have to like retake it. Like, I had to go to summer school.
Right.
When I was in, when I was in high school, for a literature class of all things. But
wow.
And now I've read, I'm on my 7th book of this year, and it's March. So.
Take that literature class.
Yeah.
My ass.
What the? But like, I think we're just taught so much, and I think that's some of that mentality of what I had at the time of like, oh, I've failed, therefore like I'm shit. Like that, I think that mentality started to kind of like rise again in me today. With like all this anxiety, because like there's a source of our anxiety, right? And I think some of that is like what we've talked about before is like how your subconscious has been programmed, and like some of that is like your default that you're almost like falling back onto.
Right.
So it's almost like, because I finished 75 hard, I wasn't just like pushing through that. That's like, oh crap, now I have to fall. Like, my subconscious has been allowed to fall back on some of its defaults. I think that's definitely like a huge part of it. But like, with all of this, like, we're trying to do like failure. Like, when it comes to failure, like we think it's like the worst thing ever. A lot of the time, that's kind of how we're taught. Like I was saying with,
right,
like summer school and like failing classes and whatnot. But through failing, we actually like learn like the proper like way to do something. You know, so like I can remember even doing like door-to-door sales, like you get rejected a lot in sales. And if you said, oh, well, the first door I knocked on, they said no, then, well, I guess I'm not good at sales. Like, if that was the case, then no one would be good at sales.
Right.
You know?
Kind of that's kind of, if that's how we're interpreting life, then,
yeah,
you know, you ain't going to get anywhere very quickly.
And I think there's a lot of people that try to be like humble in that way, where they're like, oh, like I'm trying to be like humble and like virtuous because I'm not trying to be like arrogant and prideful. So like, let me just think like less of myself. And some I think some people that try to be like humble are also like woe is me, like I can't do things right, but you know, that's okay, because especially like for some people who are like very like kind of in church land, but like don't necessarily quite get it, I don't think, is like, oh, like it's okay that I'm like crappy because like others and like God will like help me, but like this is who I am. I'm just kind of like crap. But like that's not really reality. So I think that's more of like, that's not really even humility. I think that's like more like self-loathing or self-hatred. Whereas I think like humility is actually more like understanding like reality. And sometimes you have to fail in order to understand what reality is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you know, and it's an interesting question too, like how have, in talking about reality, just like how have I interpreted my life experiences?
Yeah.
Like seriously, like how have I interpreted my life experiences? And you're talking about this, I guess we could use the word, the lens of reality.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes we don't maybe view our life through reality. We view it tainted and tinted by a different color. It's red instead of clear. And that's this, you know, the boy looking at his life on the horse as like he's a failure and like he doesn't have what it takes. It's like the lie that he comes away with. And it's like you're viewing the world and it's red, but it's not actually red. You just see it as red. And without getting too deep into that, I just want to pose that question of like, how are we interpreting our life? And what, you know, and I just remember when I was on this hiking trip, gosh, this would have been about the same time that I was reading this John Eldredge book. And I kind of was reading this story of him, of course, this horse story, right? And after I kind of read that, I was like, man, like there's this kind of central question that John Eldredge gets at in the book, which is, as a man, the central question that every man is asking in his heart is, do I have what it takes?
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about it as I kind of work through this story. I heard that and I read this story and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go out and prove to myself what I'm made of, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that. I remember as a kid, I actually like, I was the kind of boy that imagined little John, not turn down for what?
Yeah.
Not that little John. But like when I was a little boy, I didn't like getting dirty. I didn't like getting muddy. I always would have to wash my hands if I got dirty. And I didn't ever, my dad grew up on a farm, and so he knew how to work hard. He would try to get me like to shovel and work hard, and I hated it.
I actually have a very similar experience with that, because my dad also grew up on a farm.
Yeah. And I just didn't like working hard. He's like, you got to learn how to work hard, John. And I was like, yeah, but I live in the city, so I don't have to.
I don't have to milk the cows at 4 a.m.
So what the heck? This doesn't, I just didn't see the correlation. And anyways, like, I just never worked hard. I never learned how to work hard. It's not that my dad didn't teach me. I was unwilling, right? But anyways, I came to this point as like a 22-year-old that I was like, you know what? I need to go and prove to myself that I can do some hard shit.
Yeah.
And so I actually drove 3.5 hours up to the North Shore of, look at a map, Lake Superior, Great Lakes. And I drove up there onto the shore in Minnesota on Lake Superior. And there's this awesome trail that I've actually hiked all 310 miles of, by the way, Canada to Duluth. But this particular trip I'd gone up there a few times, but I've never been on a hiking trip alone. And
You've never been solo?
So never done a solo trip. This time, I was like, I got to do it solo. So I packed my food. I did 7 days of food in a pack. Usually I would do like 3 or 4 days. I did 7 days, so a lot of weight. And I went up there and I was going to do 100 miles. I was going to do 50 miles out and 50 miles back to my car and then drive back again. And I was like, do I have what it takes? Was the questions, right? So I'm getting up there and I tell you what, Adam, I thought I prepared for this trip. I had no idea what I was getting myself into because this is what happened. My pack was heavy. I did not bring music because I was like, I'm just going to be one with nature. And so I literally had 0 music or podcasts to listen to for 7 days. This is the middle of COVID. So they're like, everybody stay at home. And of course, what I did.
This is like 2020.
Yeah, 2020. I was like, of course, what I did was, I'm going to go into the wilderness where nobody is. And so it shouldn't matter that I should stay at home. I'm going to be in the woods.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I saw like 3 people this whole week.
Yeah.
And by myself, no music. And I remember there was still snow because it was like April. So it's still kind of like, it snows a lot in Minnesota. I don't know if you knew that, but it snows a lot in Minnesota.
That's kind
in the
of
winter.
like one of our tropes because it's true.
Minnesota.
Except for this winter. This winter was weird.
Anyways. And so there's like snow on the trail. And sometimes it was like I was walking on snow, slipping on snow, ankle deep, shin deep, knee deep. There was a whole section that was waist deep snow that I was going through.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I'm going to do 100 miles. Guess what? Well, I didn't even pack enough food to have enough calories to be able to like do the amount of miles I was supposed to do every day. So I'd get to like lunchtime and I was like, I feel like I need to eat all the food I have and I'm exhausted and I need more food to have more energy.
So you're almost going into like a survival type situation.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't bring enough food. Like, oh my gosh, I'm moving way slower and way more energy trying to get through the snow. It was like in the 40s and it was raining like half the days.
Wow.
Which is fine. I had my raincoat, but it's like wet and cold. It really challenges you mentally.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had to push through that. And there came to this point where it's like, I cannot do all 100 miles. But in my head, I was like, oh, do I have what it takes?
Yeah.
And I had really wrestled with it that like third day where I was like, I have to change my trip and do 50 miles and do half. Because either I don't have enough food or, you know what I mean? Like I had something had to give.
Yeah.
And I had to let go of this.
And this is on like the day 3?
3 or 4, out of 7. And I end up making my trip shorter. And I mean, I remember setting my tent up in the rain and it was cold. And I was able to get warm. Like I was able to stay alive and I had a blast out there. But I also I remember sitting on a rock at my turnaround point and it was this beautiful overlook over the forest and over the lake. And I remember I sat there and I was like, I'm going to have an answer to this question here. I'm going to listen and I'm going to ask, do I have what it takes to be a man? And I remember just like reflecting on that. And what I realized was that anytime on the trip I started singing, just breaking into song, I just had so much joy. And I just remember like having no one to talk to. I was just thinking about all these ideas of how I could like make a band and write songs. And like, I'm a huge musician. So I was like thinking about how the tech would work together and how I could like build this whole system and, things and stuff, right? I'm not going to get into it, but I was being creative.
Yeah.
I remember sitting down and taking sticks and rocks and like sand and making some kind of like some art just on the ground with things and needles and pine needles. And I remember just kind of standing up and going, wow. And I just remember as long as I was singing and as long as I was creating and being creative and thinking of ideas and creating in my head, I was like, wow, there's something about me that just it needs to be creative every day. It needs to express my gifts, my music, and whatever, leadership, speaking, public speaking. I need to be using my gifts every day.
Yeah.
And that hit me, and I had this peace. I was like, wow, I think it's not that I didn't have what it takes. There was just something I learned about myself. And I remember walking back and making it back to the trip, and there was something different about me. And when I got in the car, this is the end of the story. When I got to my car, I had the e-brake on. I'm gonna change gears a little bit here.
Change gears.
Yeah.
So you had the e-brake. So like when you parked to go out, you pulled the e-brake.
Exactly.
So it was left. The e-brake was left on for like the 4 days.
Yep. Imagine this 2005 Prius.
Oh boy, the Prius.
It was rainy and wet and cold, and I put the e-brake on, and when I got back, guess what? The Prius wouldn't move. And what I realized was the e-brake had rusted out.
Oh boy.
And the wheel was locked and I couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember calling my dad, and I was like, well, let me just connect you to how I was feeling on this trip. The snow, the food, the hunger, the e-brake locking up. Like, I was so angry, and I was getting
you were so done with it.
Yeah. At some point I had to climb a tree because I threw like a rock to have a throw bag for my food, to hang my food away from bears. And it got stuck. I had to climb a tree and get it out. Like, one thing after another, like I ran into all these challenges, and I was like, I should have done this. I should have planned for this, blah, yada, yada, yada. And I just had so much anger. I want to make sure I don't forget to say that, like so much anger, because I was like, I feel powerless to answer the question that I have what it takes. And I keep failing. And anyway, so this e-brake was like the epitome of it. I was in my head. I was like, I'm getting out of here and I'm going to listen to music. It's a sunny day. I got to drive home and enjoy my music. And I got to my car and it wouldn't move. And again, it's like just like waist deep in the snow.
Your back is already broken at this point. Like the camel's back has been broken.
Exactly what I'm trying to say. The camel's back is broken, and this was the icing on the cake, man. This was the grand
icing
finale.
On the camel's broken hump.
And I call my dad, and he's like, okay, we'll try to like start and stop on the road and try to drive and then stop, and then maybe it will like jolt it free, right? So I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and then guess what? Pop the tire. So now I have a popped tire, and I'm driving on the road on a locked wheel that's skidding, and I finally make it to town. You know, this was like 10, 15 minutes of driving on this road, and I make it to town. I pull into a parking lot, and guess what? This guy pulls in, this elderly man, and he's like, I saw you like on the highway. And he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, at this point I was like, I was just like praying, like, God, you got to send me some help, because I have no idea what I'm doing.
You were at your wit's end.
I was at my wit's end, and this guy comes, and this is the end of the story. He helps. I don't know where he came from. He just happened to be there. I'm in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, but here he is. He's like, grab that log, and now like battle ram the wheel, and now it came off, and then he hit it with a wrench, and he happened to have tools in his trunk, and we got the wheel, the e-brake undone. It was all rusty. I have this little donut of a wheel on there, and I can only go like 45 miles an hour, and this is like a 3.5 hour road trip. So instead of going like 70, I'm going 45 the whole way home.
Yeah.
And I'm just embarrassed. And one thing after another, I'm just angry and powerless. But this is where I'm getting at with all this is I remember every step of the way on this trip thinking about that book that I read and that story of the boy riding the horse. Yeah. And I remember being faced with this decision in every one of these challenges. How am I going to interpret this? And it was really powerful for me, Adam, because I just remember being able to walk away with like, wow, like, do I want to interpret that I'm a failure? Or do I want to interpret that like this is an experience where I'm learning something new, or I'm getting challenged to the core? And the moral of the story is like, before I left for this trip, I was John. And when I got home from this trip, I was still John.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I lost anything, but I gained all these experiences. You get what I'm saying here? Like, I just realized it was just like, there's nothing I couldn't go through that, you know, that there was another way to look at it.
Yeah.
I could look at it as a failure, but I could look at it as I conquered this and I made it through. And I learned now that I should probably research trail conditions for snow, and I should probably like pack more food or like do some shakedown hikes and like, you know what I mean? yeah, I just wanted to share that story because I think there's just something there when we're thinking about what it means to be a man. Well, how do I interpret reality when things are going wrong? And that's just a really super powerful story for me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's just like crazy to like, okay, like you learned from your failure of a quote unquote failure of a trip, right?
Right.
And like, if you learn from it, is it like, it's not really a failure then in a way. Like, yes, you failed, but like you failed to like achieve the thing, but like you still learn so many things from that, right? Because you were saying at the beginning, you ended up going and hiking the whole 300-mile thing later on.
Yeah. Like a year later.
So like, would you say that you learned a lot from that first trip that allowed you to actually be able to hike the whole thing?
I would, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a failure along the way isn't like the end.
Wow.
Right? Like,
wow,
you ended up beating the whole thing.
Yeah.
So like, that's like pretty crazy to me.
Yeah.
But like, do you feel like at any point on that trip you could have just like let the fear of just like, like crap, like what if this happens, or like, like, you know, like you had to cut it short, but like you still did 50 miles, right?
Oh yeah.
And like, there's a way that you could have looked at these things. Like when I was, you know, experiencing all this anxiety this morning of like, crap, like what, like what if I'm a loser just pretending to be a winner? Like, like I want people to see me as a winner, not a loser.
Yeah.
And like, if this bad stuff happens, but none of that stuff happened yet. Like, it's either in my past, like some stuff that in my past that I've overcome, or it's like fear of something that could happen in the future. And like,
wow,
it's like I haven't had to move in with move back in with my parents yet. I can still pay rent just fine. Like like these
you
things.
Still have a job.
I still have a job. Like I still like have time to find a new job before financial situation is really bad. And it's how I actually view my reality. And
wow, like
I was like starting to have like this borderline anxiety attack, and then I kind of realized, and this is what like the 75 hard stuff came back, and I was like, by me doing 75 hard, and also like the amount of time I've spent in the gym to like and fitness over the past 7-8 months, like I know through doing like daily things, that's what you do in 75 hard, you're doing like the same like things every day. Like I know through daily action that I can see results, because I have examples like my fitness, I've gotten more jacked. And 75 hard, I beat 75 hard. I know I can do that. I know I can stick to doing certain actions for a long period of time and getting results. And I realized all this stuff that like I'm having fear and anxiety about hasn't happened yet.
Come on.
And I know that I can take daily action and kind of choose what actually happens in the future based on the daily action that I take, because I've done that. And like through realization of that is like, like all these things that I'm afraid of haven't really like happened yet, and I can avoid all of them by taking action. So like I was like, okay, well, let me like figure out some action that I need to take. Let me take some action. Let me like get into the gym, because getting in the gym basically it's a win that like fixes your mood, I feel like. Also because like it gets your endorphins going and all that stuff. So like and like, let me, take prayer time. And so like between like prayer and the gym and like fixing my my like emotional state and like kind of my physical state as well with the gym.
Right.
Getting the pump.
The swolitis.
Yeah, the swolitis. I got the itis.
You just had to be there.
Yeah. But yeah, so like being able to actually like see that and then be like, oh, well, let me just take some daily action. Let me see, like, yeah, it might be like after 3 p.m. today, and at this point it's getting closer to like 4. So I'm like,
right,
I have like no time today. But it's like, but at the same time, like, I feel like I've started 75 hard stuff at like 2 p.m. before and got it all done. So I know I can get stuff done. Like I know in crunch time I can get stuff done.
Yeah. So
it's like, I actually still have quite a bit of day left here.
Yep.
Let me see what I can do with this.
And this is by the way, this is the new interpretation, right?
Yeah.
This is the uncle coming in. This is Uncle Adam coming in and going, well, this is actually what is reality.
Yeah. Uncle Adam coming in and talking to nephew Adam.
Yeah, exactly. And, because it's like, you're totally right, man. Like we can, we can get into this rut where it's easy to think fear and be like, in the future, this could happen, or this could happen, or what if this, or what if that? And all of these like emotions you're experiencing with that.
Yeah.
And all of this, like, I'm a failure and what if I'm just a loser? And it's like, wait a minute. Is that really so?
Yeah.
Is that true? Because it's like, well, no, because you have all this evidence to prove the otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can either choose to view through faith or through fear. Yeah. And it's like, that's kind of what one thing I was asking is like, how often, have we interpreted our lives through fear?
Yeah.
And now we look back and maybe what if the uncle never came to the nephew and said, no, you're not a failure. No, you do have what it takes. Like, this horse bucks everybody off. Get back on the horse.
Uh-huh.
What would that nephew would have carried into his life?
Yeah.
Believing those lies about himself.
Yeah. Like if uncle was just like, oh, well, I guess you don't want to do horseback riding. So let's just go home.
Yeah. And then the kid literally still thinks he sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so it's like, it's exciting getting to a point where we can realize how many memories do I have that I've left myself that I sucked.
Yeah.
And I actually like, that doesn't serve me because it's not true.
Yeah. Like
it's not true. It's a lie.
Yeah. Like obviously like going to summer school for like literature class or whatever. It's like, oh, well, I'm bad at reading. I'm bad at understanding what's going on. I don't work very hard. Granted, if I dug into it, the real reason why I failed literature class is because I had a crippling video game addiction.
Reality here.
Pretty much reality. Not like ultra crippling. Like I can't leave my house crippling, but like it got in the way of me getting. I failed literature class because I was playing video games. But I
don't really have a problem. Yeah,
but like,
you had a problem.
Yeah, well, yeah. I basically I don't think not until this year would I have actually admitted that it was a video game addiction.
Yeah,
because I haven't played video games in like 11 months now. So,
my man,
as far as I can remember, there might have been one spot in there where I like played something and I just don't remember. But as far as I remember, I haven't had like a session of playing video games, for like 11 months or whatever. So
that's awesome.
So now I can actually like admit that, but that was like the real problem, right? Like I had a video game addiction, but because I went to summer school for literature class, I could believe I'm bad at reading.
Wow.
And I don't work very hard. And like those things can then also creep into my identity. So even though those things weren't reality, like I was totally capable of reading books. You do now. Yeah. I'm like very clearly I've read a bunch of books this year. Yeah. And I also read a good amount my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
So
come on.
Like I can read and I can understand stuff. I feel like I understand books pretty dang well. But those were like lies that I could believe because I failed in some way and didn't actually like realize, wait a minute. I'm afraid from this failure that like I'm not good at this thing. But that's not really reality, because whenever you start a new thing,
that's the fear talking.
Yeah, that's the fear talking of like, oh no, like I failed at this thing. So then like, what if I'm just always bad at this? But it's like, that's the fear talking, but that's not reality. The reality is, oh, hey, like, you know, you got a door slammed in your face when you're doing door-to-door sales. The horse bucked you off.
Yep. Yep.
You didn't bring enough food on a hiking trip. Like, you didn't get the promotion. You didn't get the job. Like these different like places of like failure. We could say like, oh no, I'll never achieve success because I failed this one time. But it's actually like, the more that I learn about it, it's more like the people that are the most successful are the people that failed at the most at the beginning and then just learned a bunch. And I think there's a temptation to like give into the fear of like all the bad things that could happen. Like, crap, people are going to think I'm a loser, people are going to think that I'm like a hypocrite and like I'm an imposter, and like, cause I want to be, cause I like posture myself as being a winner. But really it's like, actually it's like the things that you're like, things that I was afraid of haven't even happened. That's not reality.
Yeah. Those are just lies.
Yeah. It's like, okay, there's these things that you need to like take care of, and you need to take care of responsibilities. And maybe I've like put them off for a little bit, which is could be a reality. Mm-hmm. But
like maybe you do need to work a little harder. And
maybe I do need to work a little harder. But the reality that I have, like, okay, I need to work a little bit harder, but I can just choose, okay, I'm going to take some actions to work a little harder. And I know I can do these things because I have evidence. Like, I just completed 75 hard. I have evidence that I can stick with something and see it out and get things done so I can get results.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it.
Yes.
Not the fear. And I can realize, wait a minute. I know that I can stick this out and do things daily and see results. So, yes, I have all these things I need to deal with. But if I do those daily things, if I take that action, I like, what could happen? What could that look like then? If I do all the things, like I could find like a really good sales job, and I could, increase my income by a large amount, and then I could, be more financially free. And what would that look like in my life? And then I start to see, by me taking these daily actions, that I do, instead of having fear and anxiety, I have more excitement, and through like this kind of like, I can start like believing.
Yeah, I was gonna say belief. Yeah,
these things that are good that can happen.
Yes.
In the future, and like, yes, those things aren't reality yet, but like through me taking those actions, I can make those things reality, and I can have faith and belief that those things will become reality. So it's really like,
you really choose your future, Like,
I'm in control. Like, if I looked at all the fear and be like, oh, well, that's what's going to happen.
Then it probably would.
And it probably would, especially if I just resign myself to the fact, like, well, that's what's going to happen because that's the way that it seems like it's going to. So I can't do anything about it. That's just what's going to happen. But if I actually look at what could happen on the good side of like, oh, if I do take this daily action, if I do handle all these things that I'm dealing with, dude, my life could look awesome, and not even like the far future, but like the near future.
Yeah.
And
Come
to like,
on, dude.
like understand like, oh, wait a minute.
Good.
Like, by me, like having like faith and taking action.
Yeah.
And like seeing what could be good. Like, one, like that makes me excited, but also it gets rid of my anxiety and fear.
Guys, I just want to pause you there, Adam. Like, what Adam is saying right now can and has, like, this is super profound. Like, this can literally change your life, what Adam's saying right now, right? This idea that, like, there are two sides of a coin, faith and fear. And it's like these two interpretations of my life experiences and my reality. And Like if you like he's saying, if we literally will look at our life through this lens of fear and doubt and darkness and insufficiency and unworthiness, then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if that's what we're visualizing and that's what if we're seeing and hearing that and we go, I agree, that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, if you're agreeing with that, and if you're like,
it's going to happen if you agree with it.
Yeah, if you're like, well, I guess that's what's going to happen, then you're going to let it happen.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. But if you go, no, if you're like the uncle that comes in, and by the way, we can do this in our own lives. And this is what Adam's starting to say. He did this morning for himself. He comes in and goes, he's the uncle here. And he goes, no, that is not true.
Yeah.
He says, we're going to get back on the horse.
Yep.
And we're going to keep going. And actually, this horse bucks everybody off. And actually, everyone who gets done with 75 hard and slips a little bit realizes that they need to be doing things and staying on the cutting edge of greatness.
That's why I'm doing these things in 75 hard. Because I actually like improve, and also it helps me see myself better and be able to actually grow in a way. And then also to like when you beat 75 hard, to actually like have that 75 days of evidence of, oh, I can do hard things for an extended period of time and make results happen.
And that's going to be the foundation of faith for you to make other choices in your life.
Yeah.
And we really do have we can choose.
Yeah.
We have the ability to choose which one we believe.
Yeah.
And so guys, we hope that these stories bring you guys a lot of hope today, that they inspire you. And I would just ask, how have you been interpreting your life experiences? And if you catch yourself realizing there's some things you need to go back and rework, that you've looked through a lens of fear and you've let that bring a lot of anxiety into your life, it's time to look back and let go of those things that no longer serve us and truly choose this taking actions in our life daily and being able to visualize and see our future and our dreams and our hopes through faith. Because let's come back to this, you belong in your dreams. You were born to do something great. Ed Milet always says this, and it's so true. You were born to do something great with your life. As we like to say here in the Dangerous Men's Tribe, claim your greatness.
And stay dangerous, baby.
Share the show if you want to help other men embrace danger and become truly great. You've been listening to The Dangerous Man. Join us next time. Until then,
claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.